remember growing up as a kid, and my daddy used to say this particular phrase. He would use this phrase for just about every situation. Every time he would get ready to teach me a lesson, he would say, "Son, there's a time for everything." He would say this every time I got in trouble. He would ask me, "Why'd you do it?" And I would give him some explanation. I probably was just lying anyway. And then he would say, "Well, son, there's a time for everything." But when I got discouraged or disappointed over something that I didn't get or something that I couldn't achieve, he would say, "I know you're upset, but there's a time for everything." And I'll admit, I got tired of hearing him say that, especially when I was discouraged and he was just trying to encourage me. He would say, "Son, there's a time for everything." You might understand the feeling because you too have been discouraged. Discouraged over what you didn't get or what you couldn't achieve. Discouraged because what you had in mind never came to be. Discouraged because you thought you would be further along than you are. Discouraged because things aren't going the way you expect them to right now. When things are not going the way you expect them to, our situation seems like it's so ugly. But I want to call your attention to what the Word of God says about that ugly situation. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end." Wow. That helps me to know that God has made everything beautiful for its own time. Let's break this down a little more. In the verses that preceded this verse, Solomon is writing a poem that illustrates for us that there is an appropriate time for all activities that constitute human life. The poem is written in a way that has positive life events parallel with negative life events. The one thing that I'm starting to understand about life as I get older is that both positive experience and negative experience reflect reality. Because nobody, I don't care who you are, escapes negative experiences. On the flip side, it doesn't matter how bad things get, you will at some point have positive experiences, even if you don't recognize it. In fact, I believe that life doesn't really start until your heart is broken over something, until something breaks you. Because it's the negative experiences that give meaning to the positive experiences. The bad that gives purpose to the good. It's the ugly that gives life to the beautiful. And as my daddy would say, there's a time for everything. Yes, and while there's an appropriate time for all things, it is God who establishes these times. But the thing that we have to understand is that we as human beings cannot fully discern God's appointed time. This is where you must have faith. Faith to believe what God says. Faith to believe that if He says it's going to be beautiful in its time, then it's going to be beautiful. Faith to believe that it won't always be like this. Faith to believe that your time is coming. What I'm talking about is contentment. Being content with where you are and what you have. The second part of that verse says, "He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end." This shows us the limitations of human knowledge. We can't see everything that God is doing in our life. We only see a small portion. You know, I think back to the time when I was suicidal. Back to a time when my situation seemed so ugly that all I could do was see the ugliness of my situation. And since I couldn't see past my situation, I thought, well, there's nothing left to do but die. Just die. That's it. But by God's great mercy and His compassion, He reached in and pulled me out of that. He said, "Don't kill yourself. I'm going to turn this thing around for you. Better is coming. I got so much in store for you." God told me that He has something for me to do. And other than being here for my family and being here to raise my kids, God says, "I want you to tell people about me. Tell them about my saving grace. Tell them that I have a plan for them." That's what I'm doing here, right now. I'm here to tell you that God has a plan for your life. I'm here to tell you that no matter how ugly your situation looks, God makes everything beautiful in His own time. You may not see it right now, but you can't see the whole scope of God's work. There's a time for everything, and your time is coming. God bless you.
I won't let the race overtake me. Won't let anxiety face me. Whatever comes, count me in.